Thank you for listening to the Waters Run Deep podcast. Check us out on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at TWRD_podcast. If you have a topic suggestion or would just like to send us a nasty gram, email us at thewatersrundeeppodcast.com. Please remember to rate and review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out with the algorithms to get new listeners to check us out. If you leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on an episode and send you out some TWRD stickers. Till next time, run deep.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Waters Run Deep podcast. I'm joined by myself, Chris, and Amanda and Angela. Not sure what today's topic is, but Amanda's going to fill us in. And want to thank everybody for listening. Please remember to rate and review on your platform of choice. It does help us out. I know we're not kicking them out as often as we were, but when we do kick them out, we're trying to get them out as quick as we can. But please rate and review on your platform of choice. It helps us out. It builds the motivation to continue to do it. And fun story about that. I was at the local Sheetz gas station, and I every once in a while leave stickers there to kind of get us out there. And of course, Emma came in with me, and I put the sticker because they have like a cork board type thing, but it's not cork, it's like fabric or something. And I just kind of slide the stickers in the edge. And while I was doing it, this young guy and his girl, that maybe college, but I'd say probably still in high school, walked past and said, "Excuse me, sir." First they called me sir, so it's like, oh wow, all right. They said,
well, you do have the grade going on right now.
I know. The worst. He said, "Excuse me, sir, what podcast is that?" I saw it's the Waters Run Deep podcast. "So is it yours?" I said, "Yeah, I do it with my cousin and a friend of mine." He goes, "Oh, what's it about?" And I thought for a second, because like, what are we about? You know, like I know what we're about, but like, how do I sum that up in like a 2-word answer? So I just said comedy conspiracy because it was the first thing that came to mind. So that's kind of, I guess, the best explanation. But it was kind of nice. So I gave them each a sticker and sent them on their way and left more at the board. And they disappear. Somebody's throwing them away. I will say that. So I only do it like maybe every couple months, and I maybe leave like 15, 20 max. And either they're just blowing off the board and people are throwing them away, or people are actually taking them. So hopefully they're taking them and using them and getting us out there, because that'd be cool. But the offer still stands. If you leave us 5-star review and on your platform of choice, you send it to us. You can reach us. You can send it to us, a screenshot or whatever, at the Waters Run Deep podcast at gmail.com. And we'll shoot you out some stickers. That offer still stands. We've said that ever since we started the sticker game. And or if you just like some stickers, reach out to us and we'll send you some out.
That was beautiful, Chris.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful proclamation of just lovely viewership or listeningship.
Yeah, hopefully I got 2 new listeners out of it. Or they don't,
hopefully,
you know.
And if they want to call you sir, they better never call me ma'am. I answer to 2 things and 2 things only. Hey, you and your majesty.
You forgot doctor.
Oh, yeah. You did forget that.
I am a doctor. Ugh. Although I did tell my mother that the thing on her foot was a blood blister, and she kept telling me it's not. And I said, I'm a doctor. You should listen to me. I'm not that kind of doctor, listeners. And then when the actual doctor said that's what it was, I said, see, I told you I was a doctor. So
I said the same thing. I don't know if I didn't lean on it that hard, but I said, I'm pretty sure that's the blood blister.
Yeah, it definitely is. It broke a little bit, but it's getting better. So, all right. So I have a Wacky World news story to share with you all. I also have a little other note on news I thought could be interesting to talk about. And then we have our story or our topic for the day. So this one isn't as like ridiculous as we normally typically do, but I just thought it was really funny when I read about it on Reddit. So Recently, a British billionaire posthumously, it's a hard one, roasted the art gallery in which he funded. Instead of opposing the design of the National Gallery wing he was paying for as it was being built, Lord Sainsbury took a more long-term approach to his criticism. What does a billionaire philanthropist do when the art gallery he is sponsoring builds some pillars that he doesn't like? The answer, it turns out, is to have the last say from beyond the grave almost a quarter of a century later. In the 1980s, British grocery store magnate Lord John Sainsbury, Baron of Preston, Candover, spent tens of millions funding a new wing of the London National Gallery. He did not like one aspect of the design proposed: 2 non-structural false columns in the building's lobby. It was revealed this week that during a refurbishment of the lobby, construction workers demolishing the column found a note written by Sainsbury which had been hidden inside one of them while it was being built. The note read, "If you have found this note, you must be engaged in demolishing one of the false columns that have been placed in the foyer of the Sainsbury wing of the National Gallery. I believe that the false columns are a mistake of the architect and that he would live to regret accepting this in the deal of design. Let it be known that one of the donors of this building is absolutely delighted that your generation has decided to dispense this unnecessary and ugly columns."
That's hilarious.
So I thought that was kind of funny. It was like not as like crazy or grotesque, but really like playing the long game.
Big time. So how long ago was it put in there, do they think? Did I miss that? Did you say that?
So it says that the columns were built in 1990. So that's what, 34 years ago?
Oh, okay. So it's not too long, but yeah, still, that's good clip for the long game for sure.
And he didn't like it, but I feel like it's a very like British royalty or British like upper crust way of like getting your criticism out there.
Right.
Where he's like, "Oh, I'll get them in the long run." You know? Where did Andrew go? Back. All right, so that was just like a little story I thought was fun, nothing too crazy. The other thing I wanted to talk about just for a quick minute, so if you're listening to this past September 2nd, 2024, there might be other news and other information about this, but have either of you heard about the Venezuelan immigrant gangs that have taken over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado?
I think I heard of it, but I haven't like looked into it or heard details about it now.
No, I have not been following my local Colorado news.
Okay. Well, it's not on. Well, it's okay. Let me reiterate this. It wasn't on any local Colorado news until probably yesterday, maybe the day before. But what it sprang from was all of these TikTok videos claiming that no one's talking about it. It's not happening. And if you actually Google it, all of the ones that are saying it's happening or are more right-leaning American political news sites. And it's saying that because Denver is a sanctuary city, all of these, are y'all familiar with what a sanctuary city is?
Yeah.
They're saying all of these immigrants that they were accepting, and then there's this big gang that's taken over these 2 apartment buildings. And because of that, the landlord can't make updates because he's not in control anymore. And then yesterday, maybe the day before, there was more reports saying that the Hells Angels were coming to rescue these people that are being held hostages in the apartment building.
Oh boy.
Because the police aren't doing anything and the city's not doing anything because, Colorado has a liberal governor, so we're not doing anything. Yes, our governor is Democrat. I would probably argue a little bit more on the liberal aspect. But the city it's happening in, not that I don't think any of this matters, actually is a very has a Republican mayor. So it's really been entertaining as a Coloradan because none of that is true.
Really?
None of it.
All fake news.
Fake news completely. Now, here is the truth part. Aurora is a huge city. Huge. Like, honestly, it should probably be put into two. It is so big, it takes up 2 counties. The whole city is 2 separate counties. And it's almost 2.5, like, not really half, but 2 voting districts. That's how big it is. It goes out to the airport, east, like, it's pretty big. Part of Aurora is undeveloped. Like, you all have been to the airport. You're like, there's fucking nothing out here. That's Aurora.
Well, the closer we got to the airport last time, they've been building things.
Right. They're building stuff. That part's a little bit nicer. So they're starting to like build up.
Part of the underground airport, underground layer in the airport. Building that up, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to keep the lizard family happy.
Yeah, yeah.
The other part of Aurora is where a lot of folks have been forced to move, particularly people of color, because of the gentrification that's happened in Denver. So a lot of folks have moved out there and they've had to they've like hodgepodged a lot of different cultures, if that makes sense. Because
are we talking like a ghetto or just a housing development or apartment complex?
Both-ish. So in Denver, for a long time, there was this place, there is, I'm not going to say was, because I don't call it what they renamed it. There is a place called 5 Points. And it was super, super, super well known to have very live African-American culture. Still is trying to do that. But it kind of got a little bit run down. And it was purchased and redeveloped and has been gentrified to now be called River North or Rhino. It's still 5 Points. But because of that, the people who were living there can't afford to live there anymore. So the only place that at the time that was cheap enough, because Colorado was fucking expensive to live in, was out east in Aurora. And the same thing was happening for other parts of Denver where a big Latin American culture is been forced to move out. So Aurora has a lot of different diversities that have been forced kind of live together. And I would say a little bit like East Aurora has a little bit more of a poor community. And that's where this is apparently happening, is on East Colfax and Shore. And the building that these people that they're saying they take over has recently, as of like 4 days ago, been condemned. And the people are being told they have to leave. And the thing is like, yeah, there might be people who are gang members who live there because there are tons of gangs in Denver. If you didn't know that, tons of them.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Like, I watched a whole special like 8 years ago about gangs in Denver, and I was like, what? So that could be true, but that's not that's not why people are being forced to leave. They're being forced to leave because the landlord is a slumlord and refuses to fix anything, and he is blaming it on, all of these Venezuelan gangs are the reason I can't fix it.
So what is it? Because he can't get no contractors willing to go in there to fix it? Is that? I mean,
that's what he's saying.
I was going to say he probably already sold it to a developer,
so he can't take it. So he's being brought to court, and they're being forced to move. And they're disgusting. Like, people have said, like, there are people who have come back who live there who are like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, Colorado is not perfect. We're like every state in the country, right? And Denver itself and Aurora are very similar. It's a city, so you're going to have your city life. And so, yeah, you're going to see homelessness. We had a large homeless situation that we're trying to work through. You're going to see gangs. You're going to see like things like that. So we're not saying that does not exist, but there is no Venezuelan gang that is taking over an apartment building. And
that's crazy.
It's really entertaining to me because people literally, if you go on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, are now starting to fight back, and they like go outside and like, oh, I'm in Aurora. Let me find those Venezuelan gangs. Oh, there aren't any. Like, because the reports are like, oh, they're walking around with like course, I don't know guns, but like an automatic, semi-automatics and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
they had a video, a woman posted a video of these guys entering a apartment room with their guns that apparently is from there. Sure, could be, but it's not showing them taking over.
Yeah.
I mean, again, gangs exist in Denver. Right. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just like anywhere.
you could go to Baltimore and see the same thing. New York, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Name a city that you probably aren't going to see that in. Fucking Tampa has it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting. I would say keep your ears out. It's kind of fun. It's just an interesting read.
Lancaster. Amish gang.
I was going to say, you got the Amish.
No, but isn't there like a whole
Mafia.
like thing? Yeah. Isn't there like a whole like reality TV show about that?
I think that was fake though. I don't think that was, I don't know. I've heard mixed things about that. Yeah. I've heard mixed things that it was.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, I mean, it's sad because it was pretty cool, but yeah, I've heard it was kind of reality TV'd up a bit. That's crazy though. So it's kind of similar to like a birds aren't real type thing where it's just the internet going crazy and causing ruckus where.
Sorry, you're going to say?
Just causing ruckus where it shouldn't be, you know, where it doesn't need to be.
Right. And now it's causing, I mean, and sorry, the Hells Angels aren't coming out here. Like, there's no reason for them to come out. That's not what they do. Like, that's not part of their oath. We already have 2 chapters, apparently, of Hells Angels in Colorado. So if
I was going to say, I think they
come across to be here.
Yeah, I thought I would think they'd have chapters out there because I think they're known to be prevalent in the West. And
right.
Like, yeah. That's fascinating, though, that the internet's once again strikes again, you know?
Right. And the other interesting part is then there are like people who are part of motorcycle clubs. But I don't think they're identifying who they are. You're not really supposed to, I guess, is part of the 1%ers, but they are coming out west because there's a motorcycle rally or something down south in Pueblo. So then people are kind of taking that and like, oh, see, here's proof. And you're like, no, you're taking what you want. So it's just been interesting. And it's kind of like, I don't know if, you know, the fear that it's creating, the part that worries me is, you know, for people who are just here trying to seek asylum or who aren't even from Venezuela, but maybe are Hispanic or whatever. Like, I hope that this isn't going to cause folks to react because of all this like nonsense being shared.
I think it could, but I don't know, how long has this been going on for? Like, how long has this been ongoing?
So I just heard it now, granted, again, well, I mean, nobody has reached out to us. Like Adam and I had asked if like we're okay, but our good friends live in Aurora. We were talking to them last night. And I like made a joke. I'm like, oh my God, I hope you're okay. And they're like, yeah, right. But their aunt, like, the wife's aunt lives in Texas, and she got a phone call from her that was like, oh my God, I hope you're okay. But the only people reporting on it are folks who watch right-leaning news. So Newsmax. Hi, kitty. Hi, Louie. So like people who watch like Newsmax, like Fox News, stuff like that, they're the ones who are reporting on it. So when I first read about it, it must have been yesterday, Friday night into Saturday morning. It was like, it like popped up on my TikTok and I was like, what the fuck? So when I first looked into it, all of the news things were all that. And I turned on CNN, nothing on CNN, turned on MSNBC, nothing on MSNBC, turned on C-SPAN, I watched the regular news every morning. Nothing. Turn on Fox News, it's all they're talking about.
Of course.
So that's the other question. And I don't typically like to watch Fox or MSNBC or CNN because I feel like they all have their own political agenda. Like I particularly just choose to watch the local news and then read like is it ADP or whatever, the American Press.
Right.
But you're getting some ass in your face there, buddy. But yeah, it's just interesting. So I think that I think maybe keep an eye on it and see, you know, what's its impact. I think it could go kind of interesting with like the false flags.
Right.
right, are you ready for our topic?
Yes, exciting.
Let's do it.
So this morning, I have been up since 6 because apparently I'm old and do not sleep past 6:30, as much as I would like to. So I went downstairs and made a coffee and I turned the TV and then I lost the remote. So I couldn't change the channel. And I was really lucky because the next show that came on decided to talk about a topic that I thought was really interesting. And I thought, oh, this could be a really interesting topic for our podcast. So I said I'd like to do a topic and got out my Google machine and did some research. And I want to know, are you ready for this?
I am.
Do you think you know the topic by what I just called it?
I don't. Hey.
No.
All right. The search for buried treasure has been the traditional quest for humanity for over 500 years. It was a promise of a hoard of pirate gold that could save their town from Yuppie Greed that lured Mikey Walsh, Richard Data Wang, Clark Mouth DeVoe.
Why are you doing? Wait. Why are you doing the plot for the Goonies?
To gather for a final weekend together on their search for One-Eyed Willy's treasure in the 1985 classic, The Goonies. And today, it is the search for treasure that is our topic.
Love it.
So we're not talking about The Goonies, which, fun fact, I learned probably about 7 or 8 months ago that Adam has never seen The Goonies.
Are you
I
serious?
feel like we talked about this.
Literally contemplated divorce. I think we did. He's never seen The Goonies. I think I just got him to watch Caddyshack. He's never seen Lost Boys, which is fantastic cinema. He just doesn't apparently like 80s cinema.
That's hilarious. He's never seen all those classics. He should be ashamed of himself.
Right? Why does your mic sound different?
He's closer.
Oh.
Well, that and the
cat's cat
fucking with the board here. Hey.
All of a sudden, Chris is going to sound like an alien. And the cat friends is named Louis or Louis.
You know, shit right now.
Louis.
Or little shit.
Okay. So so I was watching something about some guy who is a modern day treasure hunter. And I was like, do we still have treasure hunters? They actually call themselves scavengers now. And
scavengers?
Yeah, which I think it sounds weird. Like they have
sounds way worse than a treasure hunter.
Savage. They savage stuff and like have scrap. It didn't sound as great. And the treasure he claimed that he found, he's dead now, the guy in the show, but the treasure he claimed he found, other people didn't find. And I'm really sick of the History Channel. This is a side rant because I feel like we never find the aliens, we never see the ghosts, and we never find the treasure. And I still fucking watch.
It's all it is. It's all about getting you to come back for the next episode.
It is literally maybe I need to take a page and not tell you how this ends. Okay. So treasure hunting is not just looking for old things that belong to past humanity. That type of research is left to anthropologists, those like Indiana Jones. I actually don't know any other famous anthropologists, so that's one we're going to pick.
Anthro or archaeologists?
Could be both.
Yeah, I think in both.
I think it is. Archaeologists dig it up, anthropologists study what they dug up. So we'll say both.
Yeah, they started the civilization part of it, I think.
Yeah.
Like the
saying,
people
Chris?
part of it.
Oh, the recent.
Have you seen the newest? Yeah.
No, is it good?
I haven't seen. I've seen pieces of it. They played it on the cruise on the outside deck a few times, but I never sat and watched it.
How good is cruise TV? Like you never know what you're going to get. Like I would wake up and it'd be like bluey. And then there was like fantastic, like Australian show about how like you should treat everyone equal regardless of their gender. And instead of saying, hey guys, there was like alternative things you could say. And one of them was meat bags. And I actually really liked that. And I couldn't find it after that. It was,
wait a minute.
This tangent right
Wait a minute.
Hey, meat
yes,
bags.
wait a minute. So it's
popsicle.
better to say, hey, meat bags than it is, hey, guy.
I don't actually know if they were full on supporting calling someone a bag of meat.
Oh, okay.
I think it was
Fair
just a suggestion, and it was the one thing I took away.
Of course it was.
And then I watched Bluey again. I'm also 38 years old. And
Bluey's
I
good,
do not
though.
have children. So it was me in the cabin with Adam snoring, watching Bluey. It was great.
Bluey's good, but it gives high expectations of parents, unfortunately. Well, I guess unfortunately, fortunately. Because they're always the parents are always playing with the kids. And it's the kids don't understand that that's like 7 minutes of their life that you're seeing that. Because the episodes are only 7 minutes long. So you don't need like me to play with you 24/7, you know? Like I'll play with you, but we need to put a cap on it, kind of thing.
Yeah, play the other things too, man.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Okay.
Back to the
So
treasure.
instead searching for treasure means one is searching for actual wealth, for resources that have already been processed into commodities, things such as gold, silver, coins, jewelry, art, etc. The desire, as I said earlier, the desire to hunt can be dated back to the medieval times, not the medieval times like the restaurant that I've only been to once and was super grossed out by. But like,
how come?
The food was like so bland and the smell of horses. And I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to go back into this place ever again.
And that's fair. That's fair.
At least Renaissance fair, it's all spread out. So you don't
also
have to
sit
sit.
that and no choice to ever go to that either.
Come on.
I know. Look, I was in college and I was helping, like volunteering, and a person had a tail. And then they were eating like a turkey meat thing. And I was like, this is not my world. I also like festivals, though. I'm not a festival person.
Okay, moving on. The tail part kind of throws me off because there's only like one of two ways that you can have a tail, I feel like.
No, I don't think it was real. I think it was a furry kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the little foxtails that you get at Renfest.
So you either tuck it into your waistband or you shove it up your ass. That's like the only choice you got to kind of like have a tail. So.
Like, why is that a thing at Renfest though, Ange? Like, what Renaissance experience? And also, Renfest is more mythical creature. Where the Renaissance was about like technology and like Da Vinci and like the Medicis.
There's your technology, a furry butt plug.
I'm not against that. Okay. All right. As I said earlier, it can date back to the medieval times. Stories like the famous medieval epic Beowulf talks about treasures hidden by ancient tribes and guarded by dragons or beasts, which bring forth the prophecy of lethal danger, like death, or even worse, a curse. These epic stories mirrored the desire for wealth that plagued the political realities of the Middle Age and showed how wealth symbolized power, political or otherwise. And I think that we could probably do a whole podcast about like how power was acquired in the medieval times kind of thing. Specifically in the idea of like how the Vikings took a lot of that and what that looked like. However, today I wanted to focus not on the treasures guarded by prophecies and dragons, but those in the more modern history time. So we're going to start off in the 13th century, when those in power realized that their power can be tested by fortune, and that fortune can come from found treasures. In the 13th and 14th century, royal princes and kings started to create orders that would make it required to get royal permission to search for treasure. And in 1452, which is 40 years before what?
Christopher Columbus?
Yeah. Because what did Columbus do in 1492?
He sailed the ocean blue.
He sailed that ocean blue. I think that's when he did it. I hope I'm right then.
That was 1892.
August. It was not 1892, honey. I need you to rethink that one. Yes, August 1492.
Didn't something happen in 1776 too?
Yeah. And then in 1865, it's also pretty big. So in 1452, 40 years before Columbus sailed that ocean blue, the Count Schwarzenberg burned a treasure hunter at the stake for failing to get permission And then once he got permission, failed to find the treasure promised after using him as his patronage.
So
in the 15 to 1800s, treasure hunting and treasure lore was steeped in magic and ghost stories. Stories of ordinary objects glowing, floating, moving, or shining on their own. Treasure was given mystical thoughts that made it more exciting to find. This also made treasure hunting more like a game, where the treasure could flee or escape the hunter, or even worse, be turned into a worthless material that fooled the eager treasure person. Thus, leaving many to believe that if the treasure hunter failed, it was easy to explain, because part of that failure was due to the perimeters of the item's magic. And without question, this is understood as a magical mystery. So basically, if they didn't find the treasure, they would just say, well, I mean, it must have got up, it must have grew legs and walked away.
Or
And
there
people-
must have been an evil witch guarding it that stopped them from doing it.
Exactly. So because of these magical mysteries, there were a lot of reports of many frauds who made money off of receiving the bait for the treasure, but never produced the results. And in order to face their con, or to defeat the god of death, treasure hunters developed two strategies to explain the missing treasure, either a divination problem or communication with the spirit world. Both were very connected to mystery and magic and were true of treasure hunting. So eventually this does subside because the world becomes less fascinated with magic. I think a lot of that helps because of technology. So, it's interesting because women who did things were considered witches. We talked about that before. But then there are mostly men were treasure hunters and they would claim, magic on items. But if it worked out, it was good. But sometimes if it didn't work out, they would also be burned at the stake or killed because they were touching magic. But as time got on in the 18th century and then so forth, it became less about magic and more about using science. So I thought we could talk about a couple interesting treasure finds that were found a little bit closer, probably more in the 20th century. We don't have a lot of information about stuff found beforehand because it wasn't written about as much or because things weren't really found. Again, we're able to find things now more in the 20th century, 21st century because of technology. So we can use, magnetic guides and things that can go in the ocean because a lot of it has to do with like ships that were lost, stuff like that. Okay, so the first treasure find in 1643, Massachusetts treasure hunter Sir William Phipps, salvaged a sunken Spanish treasure ship, which had been wrecked on the Ambrosia Bank in 1599. So that's about 44 years later, he looked for the ship. And he was able to salvage a treasure of about 205,000 pounds. I'm not sure if that was pounds of like current money or if that was pounds back then, because that would have been insane back then. Oh, and the deal was, and it's still very common, that if you find, at the time, the deal was like you probably had a patronage who helped you fund the scavenge. So you would get a certain percentage and they would get a certain percentage, if that makes sense. And nowadays, a lot of times, it depends. Like if you have, so the place I was watching today, the person they were looking for, the scavenge was off of Turks and Caicos. So then you get a permit to do it. And then part of that permit says that whatever they find, like 20% goes to Turks and Caicos for like museum finds, stuff like that. So you don't usually typically get to keep all of the treasure that you find.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is how do they get funding to do that? I mean, people get funding to go out there and do that, and they really don't make much off of it if they find something, even if it's really good.
So part of what I learned in my research was that a lot of it, the people who do this are like really love it for the puzzle and the game. So you have to be a certain kind of person to really be into this because you want to solve the puzzle and figure it out. I think a lot about like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, which I didn't make any National Treasure jokes in this entire thing because it just felt too easy to me. But that's part of it. The other part, I think, is you find someone who's willing to be your benefactor and they pay for you and help with the thought that because you've done your research or you've done your thing, you're going to find this great treasure, be able to sell or whatever and make that money back. And then they get a certain percentage of it. So I imagine if you find something off the state of the state of Florida, Florida gets 20%, your benefactor gets 20% and you get 60 or whatever that looks like of what you have found. And it's interesting because some of the things found isn't always gold. Like now we're in a kind of a world because we've lived in this quote unquote modern time for about 400 years that now we're starting to find things that like, although it's not gold, it's considered a big deal because it's history or it has like ancient things to it. So,
right.
Also kind of interesting. I also think that I think there's also a certain person who's probably like a little obsessed with what they find because they're like, I know everything about this, so I have to find it.
Yeah, I get that. I get the obsession and desire to figure it out. I definitely get that.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is treasure hunters are not pirates. I did make a pirate joke at the beginning, and I will talk about a famous pirate who did happen to sometimes find treasure, but I think a lot of times we associate treasure with pirates. And pirates technically were people who took over ships and then that's how they got their money. They, raped and pillaged kind of thing.
I think that the pirate thing came about because they were stealing treasure and then they would kind of hide it,
Right.
And I don't even think all of them hid it. I think it was only like a couple of them that actually like hid and buried their treasure. I don't think it was a common thing amongst them to do that.
I think it became kind of this like what we kind of put as like, oh, a pirate also has a big chest of treasure. And they probably had stuff, but like you said, where they weren't like always searching for me treasure kind of thing. Okay. So our next one is about a ship called the Nuestra Señora de Achoga, which left Savannah bound for Spain in 1622. It was a Spanish treasure ship and most likely known vessel of a fleet of ships that actually sank in a hurricane off of the Florida Keys. So there were other ships that were part of this fleet of ships, but this one is the most famous because it was heavily laden with copper, silver, gold, tobaccos, gems, and indigo from the Spanish port in Havana. And they got a lot of that stuff from like when they invaded Mexico, because that's where a lot of it is. So the loss of that fleet was a huge blow to Spain. And they actually had to start kind of taking from other places in order to like be able to fund their 30-year war and everything because of it. So it was a huge blow. But this ship, when it went down, had a ton of copper, silver, gold, tobacco, gems like emeralds, things like that, and indigo on the ship. So they lost a ton there. In 1969, American treasure hunters, funded by investors and joint venturers, searched the seabed around the Florida Keys for the Nuestra Señora de Achoga for 16 and a half years. So 16 and a half years they looked for this thing. They apparently did find silver bars in 1973, and they were able to tell that they were silver bars from this ship because they were inscribed as such. And then in 1975, a substantial part of the remaining cargo, which contained silver, gold, and emeralds, were discovered. They also were able, and with the coins, and with the coins that were found, they know that they were found during this time because they were minted between 1598 and 1621, which kind of works with the timeline. It's also understood that the stern castles, which is the part of the ship that held the most gold and the most rare emeralds, is still missing. So that was typically it's stored in like the captain's cabin for safekeeping. It's like where a lot of the most of the precious stuff is. So they haven't found that yet. And it was found in the rear part of the Nuestros, or that's what they believe it would be. I mean, this is old. So they don't even know if this exists anymore and if you'd be able to find it. And if it did, has it, what has happened, things like that. So, but the thing to know is, especially with gold, emeralds, and like silver, like that isn't biodegradable compared to like wood that will eventually go away, right? So
yeah, you'll probably find the contents, but whatever it was in is probably disintegrated and probably caused it to be distributed upon the ocean floor, not grouped together,
And because of how, we've had increase in hurricanes and our weather patterns, it's the thought is that it's probably most likely gone. Like you said, scattered across the ocean. So I thought it was kind of cool because it's like super old. And we just started finding it. So, okay, another one. Have you all heard of the famous pirate Blackbeard?
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't?
So Blackbeard, better known as Edward Teach, was the famous pirate for his flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. It was grounded out right by like Beaufort, North Carolina, and in 1996 is when they kind of started looking for it. But some history about Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge. So Blackbeard used the ship for less than a year, but he captured numerous prizes using her as his flagship. So what that means, he did have other ships, but that was like his baby ship. The ship had over 200-ton vessel, and it was built in 1710. She was originally, the boat or the ship was handed over to René Dubois Trullon and employed in his service for some time before being converted into a slave ship and then operated by a leading slave trader until it was sold in Peru, Chile. Then it was acquired by the French Navy. Then it was sold again to be used as a slave ship. And then finally in 1717, it was captured by Blackbeard near the island of Martigua or St. Martin in the West Indies.
Well,
it was located... There. What?
I was just there.
Yeah. Did you see it? Did you say hi to Blackbeard?
No.
Oh. Next time. So the shipwreck currently lies about 28 feet off the water, 1 mile off of Fort Macon State Park, which is in North Carolina. In 1997, North Carolina stated that it was working on a project to protect the site, and will do everything it can to make sure that happens, because it would be exciting for it to be something that we can look in. With this site, they found 30 cannons that had been identified, and more than 300,000 artifacts were recovered from it. And the cool thing about the cannons is they actually had a lot of different origins. So some were from Sweden, England, they were different sizes. So it was expected they probably came from different ships and were like put on that ship as part of the pirating part. In 2006 and 2007, more artifacts were discovered at the site and brought to the surface. And some of this also shows that that probably helped with the wreckage of Queen Anne's Revenge, like what made it wreck. And among of this, they actually feel like there's probably a lot of the cannons were actually found loaded. So it could have been that people were shooting upon the boat and they were trying to shoot back, and then it sank because of how they were hit. Yeah. So kind of cool. about that ship and what was found. And I didn't know that it was so close to home kind of thing. I think whenever I think of
I didn't either.
West Indies and not North Carolina.
Yeah, I didn't. They found artifacts and stuff and loaded cannons, but they didn't find any kind of treasure or anything like that they noted.
No, nothing noted about the treasure or anything like that. I don't know if Blackbeard put it somewhere else. He was killed during this. He was shot multiple times. That's how he died. So.
Yeah, I know he was known. I think he was one of the ones that was known for burying treasure.
Yeah. So I would guess it's probably was hidden somewhere, and he probably didn't keep it on the ship just because also other pirates can take your ship.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Fun fact, again, sorry for my tangent, but I was watching something on the news that was talking about pirates, the piracy, and how pirates will like circle cruise ships in the Indian Ocean and in the like south part of the Pacific. And like it's really scary to take a cruise from like Australia to like Hawaii because like the time you're at sea, there's like pirates and everything.
Oh, I'm sure. It's crazy, that whole line there. I mean, they're constantly taking ships. I think they've because they're not allowed to. It's some weird thing, maritime law, that they can't like fight back against the pirates like lethally. So they employ like these other like water blasts and cannons, like all these like non-lethal type stuff on these like cargo ships. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was like I was watching I watch weird things, listeners, and because most of the time I can't find the remote. But this one was about like it was like a channel dedicated to cruise ships, which was kind of fun. And it was talking about Celebrity, which is the cruise line that Adam and I had just done. And one of the boats that was going from Australia to Hawaii. And then they were talking about like at a certain point, they put up protectors and people are asked to not be on the deck and stuff. And then you like, once you get past it, because apparently it's a really violent part of the ocean, but also there's a ton of pirates. And so they put up these protectors so like they can't climb the ships, stuff like that.
That's incredible.
Just, it's a world that I am not unaware of.
You know, you're really not selling me on the cruises with this.
We'll just don't go that route.
Yeah.
Wait, are you telling me that you could watch any random television show? Like you can't pick the television show. It just randomly pops up on your TV in the cabin. That doesn't sell you?
No. None of this sells me on a cruise.
I watched an episode of a TV show that I think was filmed in 1985, and I don't know what it was called, but I was interested.
Or it'll just be the cruise director telling you stuff that they've been telling you on the loudspeaker for 15 or however many days straight. You catch that too.
I like that one. They like recap the day.
Yeah.
You're like, I was there.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
The food's good. I don't know. Chris, was your food good?
Hard pass.
It was. I actually, so I've always been fascinated with overnight oats, but I never could find one that I liked. And they had muesli on the cruise ship every day. And it's Swiss overnight oats.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking loved it. And loved it so much, I found the recipe for it, the exact thing. And it made it no sense. And it's good. I found Royal Caribbean's recipe for it, and it's really good. Yeah.
Do you eat at the Jammer mostly or the restaurants?
So for breakfast, mostly the Jammer. We did a couple. I do like to do a couple breakfasts in the actual restaurant. But every dinner, I eat at the restaurant. Like I have to. The Jammer's good, but it's like eating it. To me, it's like eating a Golden Corral every night to a point. You know, not as bad, not as sloppy as Golden Corral, but like a step up from Golden Corral every night, and I can't do it.
Yeah, I get confused at people who eat at the Jammer for dinner and not like, because I don't know about Royal Caribbean as much because I haven't been on in years. I don't remember, but like on Celebrity, it doesn't cost anything to eat at the restaurant. So and they're like different restaurants. So it's like,
depending on the ship. they have different, like our ship only had one restaurant that was free that you can go to. They had the Chops, which all Royal Caribbeans have, but the Chops you have to pay for. But because it was a smaller ship, they only had one like free restaurant. But the Disney cruise we went on, they had several different restaurants that you can go to.
Yeah,
free.
Celebrity
But
had
yeah,
like 4 free and then like 4 you pay for. And even the paid for ones weren't bad. So Celebrity is a sister company of Royal Caribbean. So we did their steakhouse, which I think might also be called Chops or whatever, but it was amazing. And
yeah, I've heard good things.
Apparently they just upgraded their like steak stove or whatever they call it. That all of it, even Royal Caribbean got updated. So anyways, go on cruises. And if there's pirates, your story about Blackbeard.
And they have guards on those ships. Believe me, they have armed guards on the ship. Yeah.
I loved it. I had a great time. Also, though, Celebrity is more older folks. Like, I feel like I was probably one of the youngest people there, and which was interesting. But it also wasn't like a party cruise, which I liked because.
Yeah. Royal Caribbean wasn't so much either. There was like a party. There was 2 like big, huge parties on our ship. There was a group of 64 people.
Jesus Christ.
And then another group of like 37.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was crazy. They were like,
shit?
I don't know.
Have you ever done an all-inclusive?
I have not. I have not done all-inclusive.
Oh my gosh.
I've thought about it, but I've never done all.
I feel like all-inclusives are like cruises, but you don't like leave and you don't have like different ports you go on, obviously, but you still have like people that serve you, which I kind of like sometimes. Drinks are like included or like cost. Well, drinks are actually included in all-inclusives. I mean, they're watered down, but after like 12 shots of tequila, they're fine. And then all of the restaurants are included. Like we went to this one in Mexico and there was like 4 or 5 different restaurants and then like a jammer too. And it was all included and it was awesome.
Yeah, I've thought about it. Because I like the idea of the cruise because you get to experience all the different places. But see, I'm not too much of a beach person. So like I could skip all that, to be honest. But I like the next cruise I want to do, I want to go to like back to Alaska or something and do that.
So my in-laws said, I bet you would like a riverboat cruise.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Like up the Rhine or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I can do that. Because I like to gamble, but I'm not like a huge gambler because I'm not sitting on gambling money like that. But
yeah, same. And I like the food. Yeah. I'm not a big eater, but I like it.
Yeah, they gave us extra lobster. They charge you for extra lobster now. That's crazy, right?
That's super crazy. I also like, I don't like the show aspect, and like sometimes they're fine, but also like I'm always freezing and like there's just like a lot of people. But I wish that like Adam isn't one to go to like nightclubs and stuff, and like that's more my thing. I'd rather like go listen to karaoke or like listen to a comedian in like a small nightclub. And
there wasn't one comedian on that cruise ship.
Really?
Yes, I could not believe that. Could not believe it because that would have been right up my alley. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. They had shows and some of them were good, but a lot of it, I think, because we went out of Puerto Rico, a lot of it was Latino-esque, like people from Argentina doing, and it was cool. I'm all about experiencing the different cultures and stuff, but I felt like it was definitely more like everything was in Spanish and for the most part, kind of.
So tu hablo español,
yeah. But it was cool. I mean, we had a good time. We had a really good time. So. Anyway, Angela, go on a cruise. The moral of that story.
No, you should. They're actually fun. Okay. So our next one. In 1782, the East Indiaman Governor sank, which was a ship that was British, but they caught it that because, England and India were all best friends. But it sank off of the Cape Colony. And a part of that, there were 2,000 silver ingots, 726 gold, and then several unknown values of jewels. And in 1952, a British crew actually recovered almost 1 million pounds worth of this stuff, like actual pounds, not like million, like not like money, but like actual weight. And it was worth $5.3 million worth of cargo. And it was interesting because they actually originally hid this in Brazil, the people who recovered it, because they wanted to avoid taxes. So I love a good tax scandal.
Yeah, absolutely. What year, how long ago was it discovered? Was it a long time ago?
1952.
Okay. Probably a little easier then to hide it.
Yeah, yeah. And then another British story. So this one's a little bit more current. The SS Laurentic, which was a voyage from Liverpool to Halifax. So Liverpool, the UK to Halifax, I guess in Canada. Yeah. Happened in 1917. It actually collided with a mine and it sunk, and it had a ton of gold cargo worth 5 million pounds on board. A lieutenant commander of the Royal, the
Royal Navy.
Yeah, thank you. Was appointed to salvage the ship. And they discovered that because of decompression sickness, which is the bending because of the sea, that it bends, the divers weren't able to actually go as far. But then eventually they were able to get everything but 25 gold bars.
Damn.
So it took some time. It took about 7 seasons because they can't do it when it's super cold, right? Because ice and stuff like that. So about 7 years, they were able to get the gold cargo, except for 25 gold bars, which is actually really good.
There's still 25 gold bars down there we can go get.
Sure. I'm not a really good diver, but let's do it.
I can do it.
In 2002, the Odyssey Marine Exploration entered into an agreement with the British government to find the HMS, which are His Majesty's Sussex, which carries about 10 tons of gold coins on board. The ship actually floundered in 1694 off of the coast of Gibraltar. So no update if we found it yet or what they're doing, but they're looking for that. And then in 2009, Englishman Terry Herbert found a hoard of Anglo-Saxon gold and silver metalwork. In Scotland, that's also where they found some gold torques. So just know that in Scotland, they got some gold hanging around people have buried. So
nice.
I'm sure there are more that have been found, but that was kind of an interesting things. A lot of shipwrecks, which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they have navigation and weather mapping, so I'm sure that they get caught in storms and crash quite frequently. That's fascinating.
So I wanted to share some current things that are being searched for by our treasure hunters. Some of them are confirmed to actually exist, and some are either mythical or a legend to exist. So first, we'll start with things that were actually confirmed that currently are missing treasures that we need to find. So the first one, I don't know if I would say this is a treasure. I would say this is probably more of an archaeological request, but it is a menorah from the second temple. So the second temple is in Jerusalem, and they had a menorah that was looted by the Romans in 70 AD, and it was put on view in the Temple of Peace in Rome. The Temple of Peace in Rome burnt down in 191 AD, and then no one knows what actually happened to the menorah after that. If it survived, it would have been brought to Carthage and then Vandals, and then after that, the sack of Rome. And the last time it was mentioned was in the 6th century. So they just aren't really sure where it is, but it's like an actual menorah. The second temple is kind of a big deal because it was built on the rock that the first temple that David built broke down. So it's pretty old, and it would be kind of cool if someone could find it. I personally don't think it exists anymore.
I think they melted it down somewhere.
Yeah. or it didn't last the fire.
Why don't you think so?
I just think, I don't know. I just don't think it's like, if it does exist, then it's like in the Vatican's archives and they're not telling anybody.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one, I am totally going to butcher like all of these words. So please forgive me, but it's the Great Bell of Dhamsadi. So in 1484, by the order of the King Dhamsadi of Hanathwadi Pegu, which today is in modern day Myanmar, it is believed to be the largest bell ever cast. It hung in the Shwegodon Pagoda until 1608. Then it was removed by Portuguese mercenaries, and the governor of Syriam, which is now Philanian, melted it into cannons. It was rolled downhill to a creek and then left into a raft, hauled by elephants. Like, it's been all over. This thing has had adventures. Where it was then put on like a flagship to go back to Portugal, and then it sank on its river on the way there. So although it's a bell, I think what they're actually looking for is the cannons that it was melted into. So yeah, they have searched a lot for this, and people have been looking to locate this. It's really difficult to locate the bell. Although, again, I think it's more cannons looking for, and there have been several searches for it. So, kind of cool.
So, I wonder how they figured out it was melted into the bells. I mean, melted into the cannons from the bell.
I'm assuming that Philip de Brito, who was the like governor at the time that was like taking this on. Oh, I'm sorry. I read this wrong. It is still a bell. It was stolen to be made into cannons. It was not already melted into it. So it is still a bell. They were taking the bell to use it to melt into cannons. I apologize, listeners. That is my terrible reading skills.
So it must have been a shortage on iron.
Metal or whatever, yeah. Kind of cool though. Like, so there's this giant bell that's like just living. And that again is something, although I don't know what that's actually made of. Maybe when Ange does our like review, she can look and tell us what it's made of. But if it's made of a certain metal, like I wonder if it just rusts or oxidizes, but does it disintegrate? I mean, it's been,
I think it will eventually, but
it was made of bronze.
140 years.
It was bronze.
You said bronze, Ange?
Yes, bronze.
Cool. So, yeah, still looking for it, or a piece of it or something. But I'm just imagining how big it had to be if it was the greatest bell ever made, or the largest bell cast ever made.
That fucker must be huge.
Because I've seen the Liberty Bell, and that thing is huge. And I don't even know if that's like even part of how big. So that has to be huge.
I kind of remember I heard some crazy conspiracy theory somewhere along the way about the reason why most large bells are cracked, and I can't remember what it is now. But there's a big conspiracy about that.
Well, it probably has nothing to do with gravity, since you don't think gravity is real.
Not offensive.
Okay, the next thing is called the Three Brothers. So this is a piece of jewelry that was created in 1389. It's made of 3 red spinels in a distinct triangle arrangement around a central diamond. It was originally owned by historical figures such as the Duke John of the Fearless of Burgundy, a German banker named Jacob Fugger, and then English monarchs Elizabeth and James and Charles. Somehow, it was part of the English crown from 1551 to 1644. So that's basically between Elizabeth I's reign and Charles I's reign. And it's thought that it was probably sold by Charles I's wife, because it does vanish from record after 1645.
Damn. Hard breakup. She sold the jewel.
I know, right? It's a really cool looking, or they believe it to be. Let me pull it up for you all. Oh, it would help if I could spell. It's like a kind of weird, like I don't know how to explain it, but I'm gonna pull up a picture where you can kind of see what it looked like when they would wear it. Okay. So do you see my screen?
Oh wow, yeah.
So they kind of wore it like in the middle of their chest. And so there was like 3 spindles there and then the diamond in the middle and not around.
Wow.
But it got sold and they don't know kind of what happened to it. Here's a picture of how like the men wore it on their hat. Again, there's a diamond, the 3 red spinels, which are like rubies, and then the things around it.
That's pretty wild. See, we don't have cool style like this anymore.
I know, right? I would love to wear this hat. Here's kind of like a idea. It was like a brooch kind of idea of like what it would have looked like. And we'll post this online for folks to see if they want. So no idea where it is, what happened to it. Again, I actually don't know or believe if I believe that it is still there. I feel like it probably was melted down or broke down into something else. Did Sir Christopher leave?
It looks that way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're back.
All right. Sorry about that.
The next one is the scepter of Dagobert. So this was originally part of French regalia. It was actually considered probably its oldest part of it, dating back to the 7th century. A scepter is, like a thing you hold in your hand. It was part of the coronation and stuff for the British, for the French court, and it was given to a French king. It comes from Dagobert I, who was a French king who apparently created it with a gold master. It's just kind of a cool thing. It has like a bird on top. That's kind of cool. It's enameled in gold. It's made out of 3 parts. There's a rod, there's a hand-holding part, which has the world, and then there's a statue, which has like this bird on top. And it actually used to be stored as part of treasure in the Basilica of Saint Denis, or the Basilique Royale de Saint Denis. But in 1795, it actually disappeared from the Basilica, and it's never been seen again. So some Ocean's 11 heists went down in the Basilica and stole that. So not sure where it went, but that I actually think probably still exists. I bet it's in like someone's house and they like use it to make their schnitzel or something and don't realize that it's a 100,000-year-old scepter.
That Stern schnitzel batter.
Right. They're, whacking birds out of their tree with it. So let's talk a little bit about something that is a little bit more close to home. So we have the twin sisters. Have you heard of what these are?
No.
So the twin sisters were used by the Texas military force during the Texas Revolution and the American Civil War. And they are considered Texas's holy grails. So they are 2 cannons that were used. There is replica of them, but it's actually not the actual ones that were used during this battle. It's just like replicas because the real ones have gone missing. And so they're looking for it. It sounds very Texas to me to be like, where's our cannons? They're a big treasure. Who has our cannons? So,
but it's weird because it says that Ohio gave them these.
Oh,
yeah. So it's their disappearance and ensuring efforts have fueled their notoriety. They're pride and joy. And it's cool because they apparently they played really big significance in helping with the Texas Revolution and then the American Civil War. So, and it says this, yeah. So Ohio did give them to them, and it was part of like the American Revolutionary War. So,
oh wow.
So one is was manned by commanding officer George W. Poe, and the other one was manned by commanding officer Captain Isaac Moreland.
Thought you were going to say Bush there for a minute.
That'd be great. At some point, they were gone. As of 2019, only a few primary sources have been unrecovered, mentioning the twin sisters following the revolution, adding to the extensive confusion on the historical record of the introduction of the replicas purchased that have been put up. And they're all over Texas cities. So the twin sisters aren't just in like Austin or, Santa Fe or where, Santa Fe. Sorry, that's not a town, San Antonio. They're all over. So I think that's kind of funny too. Like Texas, they love their pride. So I would argue that Texas might have a little bit more state pride than Marylanders.
Yeah, I would think so.
The last one is the Florentine diamond. So this one, sorry, the twin sisters. Yeah, absolutely think it exists. Probably got confused with some other canon and, they're hanging out somewhere. But the Florentine diamond. So it's a yellow diamond of Indian origin. It is light yellow in color with a very slight green overtone. It is cut from the form of an irregular, although intrinsic, 9-sided, 126 facet rose cut with the weight of 137.27 carats.
Holy shit.
That's a big diamond.
That's
a honker.
Huge. It weighs 27.5 grams. So pretty big.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be on anyone's hand.
Where would you wear a diamond that size?
Yeah, it's
around
huge.
your neck.
It was originally known as the Tuscan or the Tuscany diamond because the Grand Duke of Tuscany, Austria, like they all kind of had this. So the stone origins are actually disputed. First, they're saying it was cut by Ludovic van Berken for Charles the Bold, who was the Duke of Burgundy. It is said that Charles actually wore it when he fell in battle in Nancy, and then a soldier found the diamond and sold it for 2 francs. So he definitely got what he was owed because he thought it was glass, and it wasn't glass. It was a diamond.
Holy shit.
The new owner then sold it and then sold it again and sold it again. And eventually it found its way into the Medici treasure in France. And are you all familiar who the Medicis are?
It sounds familiar, but no, not.
So the Medicis are basically Florence royalty. They were not royal, but they were bankers. And they were real fucking good with their money. They became royal based on like that. And a majority of like popes for a very long time were Medicis. And Catherine de Medici ended up being the queen of France. So.
Oh.
Another version of the stone's history is that it kind of came from a king in India and was purchased by a Portuguese governor. And then they thought it was a crystal. So then it was given to Jesuits in Rome. And then again, somehow found its way to Ferdinando I de' Medici. So what we know is that it came into the Medici through Cosmos, like the Medicis owned it, which is why, again, Tuscany, that's where the Medicis lived. We do know that the Medicis eventually all died out. And so then it was passed on to the Habsburgs. Habsburgs were the rulers of a lot of Europe, but mostly like the Holy Roman Empire. So from there, it was a part of their crown jewels. In 1657, it was valued to be worth $750,000, which is super crazy. In 1865, the diamond's weight and specifics were reported by the Royal Court Mineral Cabinet for the Habsburgs in Vienna, or the Habsburgs crown jewels, which are in the Hofburg in Vienna. But after the fall of the Austrian Empire, which happened during World War I, the stone, by order of Charles I of Austria, was removed from the imperial treasury and taken with him into exile. It is believed it was then stolen sometime after 1918 by a person close to the imperial family and taken to South America with other crown jewels. After this, it was rumored that the diamond was brought into the United States in the 1920s and was recut and sold. And it does, that's like the last we know about it. But there is a replica that is made with cubic zirconium based on historical facts that can be found actually in the Palazzo de' Medici Reggiati in Florence, which I've actually seen. So
they don't know where the real one is, but they have a fake one made out of cubic zirconia.
Yeah, because it's part of the history. So it goes to like talk about the history of the Archdiocese Maria of Austria. So they had actual pictures of it, because the person, they had it until 1918. Well, there are pictures in 1918, and then all of a sudden it was stolen, and now
and they have
it's gone.
Measurements and stuff like that too. I'm sure they could.
Yeah, they had measurements, all of that, because it wasn't that long of record keeping. So it's kind of cool. It's huge, and this here. Let me.
I was to say, we think it's like the size of a baseball, softball.
Here, I'm gonna put a picture in the chat.
Maybe a golf ball
here. Well, it's also because of how it's cut. So it's cut like kind of like this. So it doesn't look as big, but I just put a picture in the chat. That top one is the diamond.
Yeah. It kind of looks like an acorn.
Yeah. But I mean, imagine that these ones that look tiny are actually huge. Like these tinier little diamonds are actually probably like 5-10 carat diamonds. So this is all part of a hat piece.
A hat piece.
An aigrette, which is like a thing you put on a head, an ornament for your head. Oh, here's another picture of what they think. An acorn's actually a good example, Chris. That's actually really
crazy where that is at. That looks like a teardrop.
Looks like a walnut.
Or walnut.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So this is the copy one. That's not the real one, obviously.
Yeah, the colors are shit on that.
So, yeah, I mean, the thought is that it was purchased and then cut to make other pieces, which I guess makes sense. But because what would you do? You can't wear that around, right?
Yeah, but how much was wasted by doing that? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. Crazy.
So,
I guess they had to cut it up too, because it's too easily recognizable. It's that somebody, dealer or something would have got a hold of that. They'd know what it's from.
So now we're going to talk about some legend missing treasure. So this is treasure that people said it definitely existed, but people are like, well, there actually isn't any kind of proof that it existed. So everything we talked about before, We have proof. We know it existed. We just know that it is missing. This stuff, we aren't super sure. Okay. So the first one is the Ewan cornet. I'm going to totally mess up some of these words because they are Welsh and I cannot speak Welsh to save my life. So the cornet of you. So cornet, you guys know that's like the tiny little crown that like princes and stuff and dukes and stuff wear.
Yeah.
Okay. The cornet of Ewan ap Gruffydd, who was the last sovereign prince of Wales, was seized along with other holy artifacts at the end of the conquest of Wales by Edward I in 1284 and taken to London, and then kept with the crown jewels in Westminster Abbey until they were stolen in 1303. It was not present in the inventory taken during the destruction of the crown jewels by Oliver Cromwell in 1649, and it remains unaccounted for. So we know that it apparently existed and it was taken as a holy artifact in 1284 and put in the crown jewels, but somehow between 1303 and 1649, when the inventory was done, it is gone. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
If you also have never been to the UK or have yet to see the crown jewels, it's really cool. I like to always, when I go to places that have monarchs or have history of monarchs, if they do have pictures of their crown jewels or they do have exhibits, I like to visit them because kind of cool.
Yeah, I've never had the chance to do that, but that would
we'll have to go.
Too.
The next two are from the next one, is one that I actually think is really interesting because I've been really fascinated by Aztec culture and just sort of the impact that Spain had in the conquest of the Aztec Empire. So there is some treasure called the La Noche Triste treasure, which is believed to be a large amount of gold looted from the palace of Moctezuma II, who was an Aztec emperor during the time of the Spanish conquest of Aztec. The interesting thing is what we used to know about the Aztecs and the, oh my God, I'm going to forget the other group that used to live there with them. Yes. About the natives or those who lived in South America or Central America before the Spanish came over, is they actually migrated and moved a good amount and they fought amongst themselves. So although we could say that this gold that was looted is from the Spanish conquest, it could have been from other like communities that took the gold.
Okay.
So we didn't actually kind of put that together. And I went on when I was in Cozumel, we went to, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the place. We went to anywhere and saw some Aztec stuff and some ruins. And they were telling us about that it wasn't just the Spanish bringing over like plague and like murdering that was like hurting. They also had their own inter-rivalry and mingle that kind of also created these political conundrums. So this treasure could have been from the Spanish. Spanish could have taken it, or it could have been somewhere else.
Huh.
Cool. What were you going to say, Chris?
I was just like flabbergasted. I didn't know that they had like inner rivalries, stuff that they were fighting amongst each other.
Yeah, it was interesting. They were saying that in the tour that they let me try to picture Zuma. That by the time that the Americans got to Mesoamerica or the Europeans got to Mesoamerica, the Aztec and other Mesoamerican tribes and cultures had already been around for so long, and they were already starting to kind of like change their civilization, that it wasn't like they were at like the prime. They were starting to like already be smaller numbers than they probably had been. Didn't help. Europeans definitely did not help. And they brought things that they weren't aware of, but there's so much culture that we haven't even like embraced with the Aztecan and Mesoamerican cultures. So
that's great.
Kind of cool. Yeah, it's super fascinating. If I highly recommend if you get a chance to go to Cozumel,
I've been to Cozumel, and I didn't do any of that when I went there.
Oh, I was so excited when we did it. It was okay. It was a bus ride. It was a really insane boat ride, but it was pretty cool. We got to go through it and got to hear the history of it, and just kind of learn about the people and like the Tenochtitlanians and see the artifacts and stuff, which is cool. And so, but what I liked is the history part and learning things that, again, I think we're really good at bringing the world back to how the Europeans saved them, and because the history the Europeans wanted, but not realizing that they had been around for like millenniums. Yeah. And we're really, really, really like established communities. So kind of cool.
It is cool.
We have the again, I'm probably going to butcher because this is Scottish. Again, not my language, but the Loch Argan treasure. This treasure is sometimes known as the Jacobite gold. So are you familiar with who the Jacobites are?
No, I have no idea. Never.
So oh my God. So Queen Elizabeth I dies, doesn't have any kids. The only living relative basically to take on is James I of England, who's also James IV of Scotland. So James becomes King of Scotland and King of England. That is how Scotland and England then become one kingdom. And a couple years later, he has a kid named Jacob, I think. And there is some like disregard about, is he actually the heir or is there another one? They're Catholic. England is Protestant at the moment. So there's a big back and forth rift with that. Long story short, the Jacobite kind of raised because they feel that Jacob is king, or Charles, his son, is the Bonnie Prince, the prince that should be, but the person on the throne is not who they believe should be king. So there was a lot of war. And there is a great fictional TV show on Stars called Outlander. That is very hot and sexy for many ways, but gives a little history about the Jacobite rising. So it happened in like the 17-ish hundreds, so about actually almost 100 years after Elizabeth, but a large amount of gold was provided to Spain to help with the Jacobite rising. Spain and France were really interested and really developed. And when the Bonnie Prince Charlie, who was the heir to the throne, was kind of being sought to be murdered, so he escaped to France and Spain to like not be murdered. So he got them on their side. And so because of that, there was a lot of gold that was like there to help. And it's rumored that this gold was hidden in Loch Arg. Loch is it means like a kingdom or like an area, like a house. And they have never found it. So long story short, the Scots lost that war. They did not win it. And they are still members of the United Kingdom, even though they try very hard to do referendums to leave. So, it's really interesting history, and it's very interesting how Scottish history and how that all happened. So the next one, I did not think about this, and I feel like we need another Nicolas Cage experience because this one is called the Confederate Gold. So have you heard about this?
I think so. It sounds very familiar, but I don't know enough of it now.
So apparently after the Civil War, there was a ton of gold that the Confederacy had made, or gotten. A lot of it is actually thought they got some gold from England. England was really in support of the Confederacy, not because they believed what they were doing, but because Queen Victoria thought, if I support the Confederacy, then we can go in and take back the U.S. Because remind you, it hadn't been a full 100 years, really. So her idea was like, I can weaken like weekend in the US, then we could go back, take it back. But there was this gold from the Confederacy that after the Civil War, no one knows what happened to it. It had, been banked through some stuff in Ontario, and it didn't go with like Robert E. Lee or anything like that. Like, where did it go? I'm trying to think of a guy's name. I think it's Duval. Let me look it up. He was the person who actually paid for John Wilkes Booth. Young. Sorry, William H. Young. It's thought maybe he mysteriously got away with it. So troops were on the verge of invading New Orleans. Confederates removed the millions of dollars of gold to a safer location in Georgia. It was stored at a bank there, and then PTG Beauregard ordered the gold to be moved from there to go to Columbus. To go from Columbus to go somewhere else. They released the gold, but they were never kind of told where it went. There is thoughts that Jefferson may have fled with it. There are thoughts that people used it to pay their troops with it, that maybe there was some embezzlement. So lots of interesting stories. My favorite one, obviously we know isn't true because this is a made up story, but there was a joke or a thought that in Gone with the Wind, there was like rumors that Rhett Butler stole it, which I always thought was kind of funny because like I love Gone with the Wind. So that was pretty entertaining.
It is funny.
But yeah, I have no idea what happened to it. Just it's gone. So I imagine it probably was split up to pay Confederate troops, like to help with that.
Yeah.
Maybe even to pay back for like, because sometimes you have to pay the expenses of war and stuff. So
yeah,
it's probably like surrendered to the US and just put back in the treasury or something.
Yep. Somebody spent it.
Maybe we just need to ask people who still think we're fighting it. Maybe they still have it.
Yeah, they're holding on to it for a rainy day.
Right? I don't know. I have 3 more. So do you want to hang on with me?
Absolutely.
All right. The next one I am interested in, it's the Tsar's treasure. So in the early 1900s, Russia was not doing too well with its monarchy was not doing too well. Well, neither was Russia. And it was having to fight a war at home, a civil war, but also was starting to be engaged into World War I. Their monarch just wasn't doing great. And America was really kind to send Russia a battle fleet of send to the Russian Baltic fleet, 3 million newly minted American double eagle coins. And mixed coins with that. And what happened is the ship that it was on collided off of the coast of New England with another ship that had money on it. And it was a confirmed loss of about $500,000 of artifacts for the ship that collided, the newly minted money that was supposed to go to Russia, and this other money that was mixed in. So in total, there's like $4 million worth of items that were just missing when this collision happened.
Jeez.
So kind of cool. Russia didn't get that, and we all know what happened to their government after that. Also recommend looking into the Tsar. The Tsar has really interesting, I thought was really interesting when they actually murdered the Tsaritsins and the children. The women, the daughters had sewn their jewelry into their bodices. So when they shot them, they didn't die because it was like they were wearing like bulletproof armor.
Ah,
They end up
I didn't
having
know
to
that.
stab a lot of them.
That's
Yeah.
sad and smart at
So
the same
sad.
time.
Super sad, but also you're like, wow, I didn't know that. I highly recommend if that piqued your interest, listeners, there is a great documentary on Netflix about the czars, kind of what happened with the last czar. I think it's called The Last Czar. Talks about Nikki and Alexander. Nikki is the czar, Nicholas, and Serena Alexandra, and then their children. They had 5 girls and a boy, and just sort of their downfall and like where they messed up, how the government didn't play them well, and then how they didn't escape. And the really interesting thing too with them is like, so Tsar Nicholas is the cousin of King George of England. Their moms are sisters. They looked exactly alike. They were like identical. And they requested for them to get safe passage to England. And England at the time was also cousins with Germany. And Germany and Russia were fighting, and he didn't want to take sides. And so I think about that a lot. And I think to myself, okay, say I'm friends with Chris and I'm friends with, I don't know, Chris, pick a cousin of ours.
Daniel.
Daniel, great.
Daniel.
David, Daniel, whatever. Well, and I'm friends with Daniel, but Daniel and Chris aren't talking to each other. But Chris needs like safe passage. Because also, side note, George and Nikki were best friends. So it wasn't like, it was just like a random cousin. But he didn't want to get in the middle of it. So he like ignored the letter and like couldn't do it. And then obviously they died. And apparently George was like so heartbroken that if he could have saved his cousin and his cousin's family. But because he didn't want to get in the middle of the family drama, he just didn't do it. So super interesting. It's a really interesting, like, again, I love world history, but it's an interesting just political history there too. So, okay, our next one. This one is called the Dutch Schultz treasure. So an immigrant was fearing imminent incarceration. Notorious Depression era gangster Dutch Schultz was said to have buried $7 million in cash and bonds somewhere in the Catskills in upstate New York. He buried it and then shortly later was gunned down. And he never disclosed the location to anyone. So no one knows where it was buried. They just know it was buried up in the Catskills. And treasure hunters apparently still dig around for loot this day and are looking for it and trying to find it, but nobody has confirmed they have. So if you're looking for something to do, drive up to New York State, upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains and bring your shovel.
So apparently they did find some of it.
Oh.
Really?
In 2021.
Update. This just in.
It was found near the creek in an area of Lulu's map. There were 2 gold coins from 1903.
They found 2 gold coins.
Yes.
Wait, what is this? This is the Dutch Schultz thing?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 gold coins from 1903.
Mm-hmm.
That means it must be somewhere. And where did they find it at again?
This was on treasurenet.com, by the way. Because there's a site for treasure map. Area of Lulu's map. So it's on his map.
So it was in like a river or something?
Yeah, it was.
But it was $7 million in cash and bonds then, which is equivalent to $156 million now. Oof.
It was
in a safe. So how did they find it outside of the safe?
It was Phoenicia was the area, closest town.
I don't know, man.
Nice to find it.
Maybe we gotta make a little drive up to upstate New York.
Right?
What do you think?
Maybe hit Niagara.
Allegedly, it has 2 coins have been found.
What was found?
Just 2 gold coins from his treasure.
That's it. It was supposed to be in a safe, though. That's how do they even know?
I don't know. I don't know how reliable treasurenet.com is, but there's a whole thread about it.
I know. Now now I'm interested that maybe we have to go. Chris, bring your shovel and bring the gloves.
Got it.
I have the
metal detector.
Right.
Love it.
Well, then the question is, like, if we find it, how much money do we have to give the state of New York?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is you can do all the work and then you don't even get to keep it.
Okay. Well, I mean, 125 million. And do you have to report that in your taxes?
Yes.
Probably. You know,
but don't
Sam's
you have to
gotta get
report on your taxes?
Oh, he was gunned down on October 23rd, 1935.
On your birthday.
50 years before I was born.
Maybe you're actually reincarnated him.
I feel like it. Oh, maybe he'll tell me then.
Yeah. That's what
All right. What's your last one?
Oh, okay. The last one I think is the one that is the most interesting because I feel like there's probably some like people who are definitely looking for this currently. And that is the Nazi gold train.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they are.
So it is apparently a train laden with gold and other treasures hidden by the Nazi Germans in a tunnel near Wolfsbrucken in Lower Silesia, Poland. The apocryphal tale claims that the train's full of valuables, including artwork and gold, all those things, and it was concealed and it was in a sealed up rail tunnel by retreating Nazis. Despite numerous searches since 1945, including those by the Polish army during the Civil War, there has been no evidence of this train, its tracks, or the treasures to be found. And many historians actually don't think it existed, but people are still looking for it. So people are looking for it so much that somebody actually like recreated it. Like between 2015 and 2018, the train received a renewed global interest that two men actually claimed to have discovered it. And then they found out it was just like a replica or like a tourist attraction.
That show called White Collar. They did a thing on that. It talked about it's a reenactment show, like not a reenactment, a fictitious show, but that was part of their storyline with the Nazi train. Good show if you've never seen it.
I have not seen it.
Good.
I will say that the people who are currently, there's these two guys who are looking for it. They've yet to find anything. One of the guys actually has left the team, but another guy, Coper, is continuing to search. And although he has not found the Nazi gold yet, in 2019, he did discover a series of large and priceless 16th century wall paintings that were hidden behind a plaster wall while doing renovation work in Stuttgart. So there's definitely still some treasures out there that the Nazis stole and are that were hidden, and hopefully we'll keep finding them. So we know that there's a lot of gold, a lot of art, because part of the plan for when the Nazis were trying to take over the world was to collect all this art and stuff, because they were going to create a museum of museum of the human world and include all of these old things in it. So what's actually kind of, I don't want to say cool, because nothing about Nazism is cool, but about this part of history is in Berlin, they have this place called the Museum Island, and it has these museums. I think I've told you about them on the island. And at one end of the island is this beautiful, huge church. And the other end of the island, at the time when I was there, was nothing, but they have now rebuilt the palace. It used to just be the palace. And then when the World War I, obviously no more German monarchy, so the palace is gone. They've actually rebuilt it of how it looked for history aspect. But in between those buildings are these museums, and the museums have a ton of art because the art that was collected from the Nazis were put there. And some of the art stolen by Nazis, we're going to say stolen. The owners either no longer exist because of concentration camps, etc., or they are unable to find who owned that art to be able to give it back. So there's a lot of really interesting art in these museums that you're like, wait, why is that there? Because
it's unclaimed.
What families they took it from?
No,
they didn't keep a written record. Okay,
because they didn't count, right? Why would they record where they took it from?
True. Well, I mean, inventory aspect.
They definitely took record of what they had. I don't think they took record of where they got it from.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly.
A lot of, I would say, specifically like Jewish families who had, like if it was specific kind of art or jewels and stuff, they probably didn't, some of the families probably don't exist anymore because, there were families that were completely ended because of that. But it wasn't just that. Like, I mean, so Nazi Germany took over the Netherlands. They took over Poland, Austria, France. So all these countries too that art was at. They had people that traveled the world, even though they didn't fight, to find stuff. So there is art that's from Middle East. There's art from different places that they brought back because they were going to make Berlin. Well, actually, it was supposed to be Vienna, but ended up keeping it in Berlin at the time. Was going to be the art hub of Nazi world. So it's an interesting perspective. Again, it's terrible what happened, and I believe everyone deserves their reprimand and gets their art back. But it is interesting if just Berlin has a really cool art history aspect because of this terrible thing. So The other cool thing about Museum Island that I think is super interesting is you can still see bullets from World War I and World War II in the walls of the museum. So, in the columns and stuff. So,
wow,
kind of interesting. I think especially because we're just America's. I forget how much of a baby country we are, and I hope we never have to go through something like that. But I think being just how our continent is, us, Canada, and Mexico, kind of, we kind of don't really have as much history as these European and Asian countries do.
Oh yeah, and if we do, we do, but it's Native American, I think, and I think that's kind of unfortunately due to our part. A lot of that's been erased or demolished.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because so then it's a great example, Chris. Now learning about the Aztecs and what we learned about them, and how do we make sure we're focusing on that history? But yeah, it's kind of cool. So those are my things. I hope you liked my random takeover of today's podcast, and I enjoyed sharing about treasure hunting. We could have talked for hours more about it, but I thought just getting into the kind of fun different treasures would be cool to look into. Yeah. And I'm sure there are more. And
absolutely. Loved it. Well, I want to thank everyone who joined us this episode. And please remember, as I said in the beginning, to rate and review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. And still got stickers and they offer stands. So please just shout us out. If you want to hit us up, you can reach us at the Waters Run Deep podcast at gmail.com. Or you can also hit us on Instagram at TWRD_podcast. Till next time.
Bye.
Shout out to our Random Sheets listeners.
Yes. And shout out to the Random Sheets listeners. Keep on keeping on.
Man, I miss Sheets. I don't have anything like that here. Even the Come and Goes, they've changed the name, which no longer makes it fun to go there. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like Anderson's gas station now or something.
That's not as fun.
Because Come and Go is literally the best freaking name for.
Everybody,
Yeah.
people complaining about that.
I don't know. We do have a Buc-ee's, but it's kind of far away. So.
A Buc-ee's was
Didn't
amazing.
you go there?
Yes. My first Buc-ee's experience. It was amazing.
I just thought you said fucking experience, and I was like, oh, all right.
Oh, wrong
Buc-ee's.
podcast.
Wrong podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Waters Run Deep podcast. Check us out on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at TWRD_podcast. If you have a topic suggestion or would just like to send us a nasty gram, email us at thewatersrundeeppodcast.com. Please remember to rate and review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out with the algorithms to get new listeners to check us out. If you leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on an episode and send you out some TWRD stickers. Till next time, run deep.